well in our nations. We pray that you lead us as we embark even on this conference, and whatever we are putting into it, guide us, lead us. Let your Spirit help us to build that which lasts. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you very much, Pastor Nyikayaramba. To start off, I would like us to, I know we had a recap of our panel discussions and the discussions or the conversations we were having yesterday. Is there something that might have caught someone's eye in terms of the conversations we're having that they might want to remind us of? I know net metering and hydrogen energy were a big conversation, and a lot of people were very interested in that. Do we have anyone that might want to give us a recap of what they remembered yesterday? Okay, I'm just going to pick one person to give us a recap. Seb.
A recap on hydrogen. Okay, so from what it looked like, hydrogen's cost of production is coming down. It's still fairly marginal on the cost of imported power, is what I remember, and that it is improving significantly year on year out, and that that in the future we'll be running our airplanes and a lot of big commercial mining vehicles on it. Then we touched on solar, and there was a good presentation on power deficit in the region. For me, it was quite surprising to see how much excess power Angola's got with 2 gigs. And it's great to see Zimbabwe with 1/5 of the problem South Africa has for a change.
That's definitely true. Talking about Angola, we'll be having a speech from a representative soon. But at this moment in time, I'd like to call upon Sarah Molosiwa, Ambassador of the Republic of Botswana, to the Republic of Zimbabwe, to give us her remarks as we prepare for our next speaker. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, thank you so much, MC. And a very good morning, colleagues. Yesterday, ever since I came in, I realized that the language has been so scientific, so technical. Hydrogen energy, hydrogen. And I'm a social scientist, so I'm going to be speaking social sciences language and not natural sciences. So you'll bear with me. Maybe my remarks are going to be so digressing from what you have been hearing all along since this program started. But otherwise, I want to thank everyone and thank the organizers for having given me the opportunity to also say a word or two. As we have already been told, my name is Her Excellency Sarah Molosiwa. I'm the Ambassador of the Republic of Botswana to the Republic of Zimbabwe. The PS of the Ministry of Energy, Excellencies here present, as well as representatives from other embassies that are accredited to Zimbabwe, heads of respective private and parastatal organizations, senior government officials, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to say all protocol observed. And a very good morning once again. Let me start by thanking the government of the Republic of Zimbabwe through the rightful Ministry of Energy and in collaboration with the private sector organizations for arranging this very auspicious meeting that is discussing very important matters on renewable energy. I wish to underscore the importance of the Ministry of Energy joining hands with all the related stakeholders to address each other's on this subject matter of overcoming the shortcomings and the challenges that are faced concerning energy services in Zimbabwe, as well as in the region and beyond. Dear colleagues and honorables here present, ladies and gentlemen, may we recall that as good as neighbors, Zimbabwe and Botswana, they share familial, cultural, historical, and most of all, economic ties, which go as far back as the pre-colonial era. These ties, they became stronger after both of our countries attained their independence. I don't need to go into the history of Botswana and Zimbabwe. I believe that we all know that we've been brothers and sisters or as sister countries right from long back. Let me further recall, ladies and gentlemen, that as good as neighbors who have peacefully coexisted from time immemorial, there is bound to be issues of concern. There is bound to be challenges. There is bound to be subject matters of governance, of politics, of economics that we share, or that both governments as our citizenry interact with them, that both governments share as our citizenry interact due to the close proximity of our communities and close proximity of our countries, and especially that we share common borders. I wish to appreciate all energy and related organizations for having taken time to come and converge and discuss with the government of the Zimbabwe their experiences and, where possible, suggest solutions to some challenges they experience in the quest of finding ways of provision of total quality energy to Zimbabwe, as well as for export, possible export to neighboring countries and to the region. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to indulge both government representatives of this Setswana adage that says, "Mafuku a khotla a mantle otlhe." It loosely means, when translated to English, that everybody's view is most welcome. So I believe that when sharing our experiences and our challenges with the private sector about what they're experiencing on the ground, would be able to make a resolution that can be taken further to our principles. On one hand, ladies and gentlemen, I want to encourage all the stakeholders to explore more avenues of private-public partnership with government to ensure that there is everlasting solutions to challenges of shortage of energy. I believe you can see we've had within the past few days what is happening in our neighboring countries. And one of the core issues that have been spoken of is energy, lack of electricity. So I believe that we'll be able to come up with solutions to these shortages of energy and related value chain products. May I also encourage governments of the Republic of Zimbabwe, especially the representatives who are here present from the ministry, to continue supporting the needs of the private space community so that both parties in various forums and platforms of interaction may collectively make firm resolutions and recommendations to the leadership, to the principals, whom I am convinced are always eager to see energy issues being speedily resolved, and taking Zimbabwe to greater heights in energy production. My government, the government of the Republic of Botswana, is very keen to see the diplomatic relations and bilateral cooperation between our two countries, birthing value chain partnerships out of the diverse energy business community that is already flourishing in this Second Republic. The Embassy of the Republic of Botswana here in Harare, Zimbabwe, has its doors open to the business community that is interested in collaborating with Botswana businesses in order to further develop the economies of these two countries. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to express my satisfaction on the implementation of the commitments from the inaugural Binational Commission which was established in 2019, where the Republic of Zimbabwe and the Republic of Botswana rolled up their sleeves to deal with most areas of mutual interest. Lastly, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to express the best wishes to His Excellency the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Dr. Emmerson Dambuza Mnangagwa, to the government of the Republic of Zimbabwe, and to the people of the Republic of Zimbabwe, successful and very peaceful upcoming 2023 general elections. I thank you. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Madam Ambassador. My take home is everyone's view is most welcome. And thank you very much for your input. Your view is most welcome. And I think it assures us as we begin our early morning program. Our next stage of our program today, we're just going to start off with a presentation. The presentation is from Verifying Engineering. And as Engineer Kapenza comes through and he prepares, I just wanted to acknowledge his team. There are some team members who are here. I would like to ask them to stand up. I know these team members don't speak much, but they act a lot. So I'm giving them an opportunity to just greet the audience, and hopefully I've been directed to the right person.
Thank you very much. Like you said, I had not intended to stand up and speak. I am Air Commodore Dr. Engineer Kamsoko. I'm the chairman of the Board of Verifying Engineering. Thank you.
I'm Engineer Petsaita Fumane. I'm the CEO of Verify Engineering. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm sure now people can come and engage and learn more about the good work that you are doing in the country.
Engineer Kapenza, you may take it away.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. They call me Engineer Amos Kapenzi. I call myself Engineer Amos Kapenzi. So my theme of my presentation, let me start by saying all protocol observed. My theme of my presentation is renewable energy power plant projects, investors and government decision makers guidelines. Verify Engineering is a company which is under the Ministry of Higher and Tertiary Education, Innovation, Science and Technology Development. As you can see from the map, on the screen, we have got different projects around the country. We have got a Lusolo project, which is a liquid fuels, coal to fuels project, chemicals. Our aim there is to convert coal to liquid fuels. Our expected capacity is 8 million liters per day of petroleum products. In Mutare there, we have got a air separation plant where we produce medical grade oxygen gas, nitrogen as well, and also acetylene. In Chivu there, we've got iron steel production plant, which we are looking forward to produce 2 million tons per annum of iron steel products. And then we've got a coal mine in Kwasine, where we are going to look forward to produce coal to fertilizer plant. So in this presentation, I'm going to talk about the concept of site identification for a renewable energy project, specifically looking at the solar project. I'm also to look at the pre-feasibility study, the feasibility study, the issue of the project financing, the detailed designs, as well as the engineering, construction, and commissioning. So my aim of the presentation is to enhance the investors, to enhance the government decision makers, to enhance the project owners, to understand how to develop a renewable energy power plant, especially focusing on a solar PV power plant. Also, we are going to talk about the financing of renewable energy power plant projects. We're also going to talk about the construction of renewable energy power plant project. And also, we are going to talk about how to operate and maintain a solar PV power plant. So when we are talking about a power plant, to those who failed to visit SOGAS, please don't worry. This is just a general overview of a solar PV power plant. We receive sunlight, we've got some solar modules, we've got the inverter, we've got the control panels, SCADA, including the SCADA system, the metering, and then the transformer, and then we connect to the ZESA grid. So I want to start by talking about the site identification. What factors do we consider when looking at a solar power plant project? We look at the local climate, we look at the solar irradiation, we look also at the availability of the land, we also look at the accessibility to the grid. We also look into the environmental and social concerns associated with the development of a solar PV power plant. In our case, we've got 2 projects I need to talk about. The reason why we formed the VE Energy, which I'm heading, is that all these projects which I talked about, they are the major energy users projects. Hence, we said instead of being a major energy user, we need also to generate electricity. So VE Energy, it is becoming an IPP, and also it is developing to be an EPC contractor, a local EPC contractor. So on site identification, we have got a photovoltaic potential. Zimbabwe is rich in terms of solar irradiation, but the irradiation varies across the country. From Tare up to this side, you've got, from that map, we see from this side of Matebeleland, the irradiance is quite high. So we have got a 50 megawatt solar project which are working on at Shangani, a proposed project which are working on, which are now awaiting the licensing to be out anytime soon. And also in Mutare, we are working on the design of a 3 megawatt solar PV power project to supply power to our 2 megawatt plant, ASU plant, and acetylene plant in Mutare. So instead of being energy users, we also generate electricity. So about solar irradiance, this is the power per unit area we require. And also the general requirement for solar is basically 2 hectares at maximum. per megawatt. It varies from 1.5 to 2 hectares, but due to technological advancement in solar panels, the lead requirement is being reduced. On the pre-feasibility study, this is the desktop pre-feasibility study whereby we'll be looking at the project site, accessibility of the site, and also the conceptual design, the approximate cost, the estimated energy yield. So to estimate the energy yield on a particular site, we use solar PV system, which is a software to simulate the amount of solar energy you can yield at a particular site. So the use of software is very important in simulations these power projects. So for the design engineers, this is a good tool to use. The electrical design software, the PVC, the DigiSilent, the ETAP software to simulate what we can get from a particular power project. There's also the issue of the permits, zero license, power purchase agreement. These are very important documents which we'll be looking at a pre-feasibility study. Okay, it's now responding. And then the feasibility study, this is now a detailed look into the proposed site to see if the site is feasible for implementation of a solar PV project. So basically, the feasibility study will be looking at the technical, the regulatory, the financial, as also as the commercial aspect of a solar PV project. So as I mentioned, there I've modeled the integration of a 50 megawatt into the grid. So in the design office, the design engineers can also do the simulations. If we integrate this 50 megawatt, what impact will it have on the grid? Will the voltage increase? Will the voltage decrease, resulting in the interruption of the power system stability? So during the full feasibility study, it is very, very important to carry out these simulations so that we will be rest assured that the money we are putting on a particular site will result in the yield or in the return on investment on the project. The full feasibility also includes the grid connection issues. It is very important to go close to the grid or in terms of the implementation of a renewable energy project. Also, the issue of the licensing, there are some licenses which are being required, like the zero license, the power purchase agreement, the grid connection agreement, and also the issue of the EMA. Also, securing of the finance is very, very important. Carrying out the financial models is very, very important on the implementation of these power projects. Also, it is a requirement to ZERA to have a comprehensive modeling of a solar PV project or any renewable energy power project. So at Verify Engineering, VE Energy, we have got the full capacity to conduct full financial modeling for any renewable energy projects. Taking of the EPC contractor, there's need to do a detailed due diligence to the EPC contractors, their capabilities, their experience on the implementation of these renewable energy power projects. Also, there are some critical tasks to be taken by the EPC contractors, like the planning and scheduling of the task is very, very important to see if the project is within cost, is within the time frame, it is also within the budget which is being required by you, the investors, and also as the government. Also, there's the issue of the cost management. We need to manage costs on the implementation of a renewable energy power project. Also, it is also very, very important to carry out the risk assessment on a particular site and also to do maximum coordination of renewable energy power projects. So basically, that is an example of a renewable energy power project. We've got some solar arrays there, a substation, and that one is got a battery storage. So that's all on my presentation. On the panel discussion, we welcome questions and discussions. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention.
Thank you very much, Engineer. I think I took a very good gamble. We're trying to decide whether the ambassador speaks after this session. And I think she rightly says she's a social scientist. So the technical stuff that Engineer Kapenza was throwing out here, I think she would have just said, why are you doing this to me? Thank you very much. You may take a seat. Okay. I'm going to call upon a number of people who are going to join us. Some of them are going to be surprised, but all the same, I think you're going to make your presentations as you come through. RIA, Rural Electrification Agency. I think we've been here yesterday, we haven't heard from them. So I'm going to ask someone from RIA, I haven't got the name yet, to come and do a short presentation around biogas. And they will also join our panelists. I also want to advise Engineer Chingosho, when you are ready after this presentation, you may also come to join the panelists together with my brother from Kenya, Goodwill Technologies. Please join at the end of the presentation.
Good morning to you all. My name is Cliff Nandara, and this has been an ambush on me. I wasn't expecting this, but nonetheless, once a soldier, always a soldier. Now, let me talk about biogas from a RIA's perspective. First things first, I need to clarify the distinction between REF and RIA. In the statutes, you will find REF, which stands for Rural Electrification Fund. That is in the REF Act of 2002. However, the REF board, which is provided for in the Act, went on to establish an agency, which is an implementation arm of the REF board. So RIA is subordinate to REF, but in the big picture, it's one and the same organization. Now, from a mandate perspective, there are two things that are provided for in the founding legislation. REF is obligated to do capacity building of project developers, and specifically training of project developers, so that the rural energy supply projects are done cost effectively. And specifically, we are training builders, biogas digesters builders. And we train for the nation, so we train and release. Then they are expected then to provide the services to the rural communities on demand. Then we are also obligated to attend to standalone technologies for the supply of energy, and this is where biogas digesters come in. So besides training of builders of biogas digesters, we also construct biogas digesters initially for demonstration purposes and eventually as part of rural energy supply. To date, we've trained more than 300 builders, and we've trained them on sizes that are big enough for institutions. And here we are looking at boarding facilities in the rural areas, boarding schools. And we've trained them for household biogas digesters. So all in all, I think we've close to 300 builders that we've trained. And we've constructed more than 400, that is for both institutions and households. The greatest challenge we face when we are looking at institutional biogas digesters is one of ownership. It requires an administration that is keen in taking up the technology. And also, it is suitable for areas where there is large biodegradable waste, that is from kitchens, from piggery projects, from cattle, penned cattle. So if you have a large waste that you are grappling with, a biogas technology is a suitable intervention. And we've trained builders out there whom we can contact and have the digesters built. So back to the challenge with institutions is that when we put up these plants, there's induction that takes place of the staff that is there then, and it is usually the maintenance staff. But once that staff has left, or if the administration changes, we have found out that the digesters quickly slip into a state of disrepair. So it takes keen interest in the users to get the plants to get running. And just for emphasis, you require a lot of waste for this to be sustainable. I would say that's my installation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your submission. May I also ask my good friend from Goodway to come through? Engineer Chingosho. We've heard something from Goodway, so I'll also ask Engineer Chingosho, just give us a brief, 2-3 words, and then we can go to the matter at hand. We are discussing today renewable energy technologies, especially those that we are seeing in Zimbabwe, and how we can roll them out. Engineer?
Thank you. I'm Engineer Chingosho from the University of Zimbabwe, representing the Energy and Power Cluster, as well as also being the coordinator for the Renewable Energy Program at the University of Zimbabwe. We pride ourselves in our capacity building, and we subscribe to the notion that we should end roadblocks in technology transfer, knowledge sharing, and also build capacities within the renewable energy sector in Zimbabwe. I'm happy today as a panel discussant, we are going to discuss about renewable energy technologies, and my major point of note is to say that let us be like pilots. Let's be able to aviate, navigate, and communicate. On aviation, let's take control of the energy mix that we are going to use in Zimbabwe. I agree with my PEMSEC, Dr. Gloria Magombo, when she always talks about a rightful energy mix. An energy mix is important. Zimbabwe is not only for solar, we have biomass, we have wind, and let's also navigate. By navigate, I mean, let's have direction, where we are starting from, where we are, and where we are going. Then by communicate, let's have a knowledge platform where we can share what is happening across our country in terms of renewable energy technologies. That way, our research institution can then support and provide proof of concept. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that submission, and thank you very much, gentlemen, to the discussion at home. We're just going to discuss more about the subject. Do you think Zimbabwe is adopting these new technologies as quickly as we should, or we are lagging behind? I think that's a question that's open to anyone as we begin the discussion.
My answer to that is a big yes. Why I'm saying so, we have got different IPPs in renewable energy. Also, we've got different players who are implementing renewable energy projects. We have got Central Grid EM, we've got Nyangani Renewable Energy EM, we've got Green Fuel, which is a bioenergy plant. Also, we've got in the low veld Tonga Dules Triangle Hippo Valley, they're also implementing renewable energy. What we are yet to see and what we need to come on board is the wind energy generation. There have been some technological developments in wind energy. We normally used to see the horizontal, we're now seeing the vertical turbines in terms of wind power generation. So in Zimbabwe, let's do a lot of research in terms of energy. And also to the ZESA side, I think we need to look at the implementation, the impact of integration of many renewable energy, because everyone is now talking of implementing renewable energy projects. So our question is the ZESA grid in terms of power system stability, is it ready to accommodate the overwhelming response which is being done in the implementation of renewable energy projects. So my question to that, from the Zimbabwe perspective, is a big yes.
Speaking specifically on biogas, there is low uptake of biogas in the rural areas, mainly because of lack of awareness of the potential for biogas to solve energy poverty or to solve energy problems. There's been talk of an energy mix, and therefore biogas is one of the constituents of the energy mix. The other is solar, and I'm talking at household level at rural areas. So for cooking, you may use biogas, and then for lighting, you transit to solar. So you can have both at the same place. And for those that have electricity as a third dimension, because you can use the other forms of energy, you can release some capacity which can then be used by other economic agents. So the issue at hand is that we need to make aware the rural areas that biogas is a potential energy that can solve their energy problems. So we need to mount aggressive awareness campaigns as RIA as well as together with other stakeholders. It's also useful at the farms. And at the elegant level or high level, biogas can also be used for farm machinery. The machinery needs just a little tweaking for it to utilize biogas. So you can win yourselves from diesel, for instance, by switching to biogas, provided your machinery is just adjusted slightly. So for biogas, we need to step up the drive. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think the key word is rightful energy mix. I agree that we are doing a lot in terms of our renewables, but I still feel that we are subscribing mainly to one technology. I believe that the key word should be rightful energy mix and also decentralized energy access or distributed energy access. If we are able to generate at the point of use, we eliminate a lot of other cost drivers that all of us are having to fight with. We need to also make sure that we are building capacities within our country in terms of renewable energy technologies. We need also to make sure that there is adequate technology transfer. We need to be able to realize that when it comes to renewables, the power of renewable energy technologies is to be able to supply twice as much or even better than that in terms of what the fossil fuels are able to do. But the challenge we are facing is the rightful opportunity. If you earmark renewables as a competition to fossil fuels, you may lose. We need a whole mindset change. We need to align a lot of things. We need to appreciate that when it comes to renewables, there are key drivers or key factors that should first of all be considered, like energy efficiency. Once we become energy efficient, then we can talk about renewable energy. For technologies, there's also need to make sure that we are using the rightful technologies for the rightful use. I don't subscribe to the notion that wind energy has failed in Zimbabwe. It might have failed for power generation, but has it failed for mechanized power supply? Has it failed for grinding mills? Has it failed for water pumping? Let's talk about biogas. I hear a lot of people saying biogas probably there's no uptake. It has also probably failed to some extent. The question is, when these biogas systems were delivered, were they meant for the rightful purposes? Sometimes we tend to prescribe solutions to problems that do not exist. If I don't have a problem about cooking, don't give me a cooking solution. If I don't have a problem about power, give me what I need. So I believe as a country, we need to look at these technologies as they are looked at elsewhere in the world. That is for for power generation or for heat energy supply. Once we demarcate that way, then we'll be able then to make the rightful solution for the rightful problem. Thank you.
So maybe on my end, as an OEM representative, what we are seeing in Zimbabwe and generally in SADC region is a very robust increase in the consumption of the renewable energies technologies. And in this case, we have seen a very significant growth in terms of the solar uptake in all the neighboring. Some of the factors that are causing this adoption of the solar technologies is continued adoption of better government policies. Like in Zimbabwe, I've also read about the net metering. We also seeing a very good climate for development finance institution to support the government to give some rebates in terms of adoption of these green energy technologies. On our OEM side, we are also seeing also a robust in terms of R&D, whereby there is a very increase in terms of the efficiencies of these technologies to deliver to the needs of the countries and also to integrate to the existing grids of the specific nations, of the specific power pools.
Thank you very much for your initial submission. Don't give me what I don't need. I think it's a very important statement. I'm going to open up the space for us to then interact with our panelists. Questions arising from the discussion that they've just had, input and remarks. Today, I'd like to favor those who have not had a chance to speak or who are doubting themselves by one reason or another. If I've noticed, I'll just come right up to you. So I'll suggest you might as well bring your hands up today so that our program moves up. Any questions for our panelists? Madam, you may use the speaker in front of you.
Whilst people are thinking about the questions, and please pick up on those who have not spoken, they have to show that they have been to the conference so that we hear from them as well. Thank you for the presentations, which are quite rich and important for us. But what they tell me is that there's serious information asymmetry. And hence, this conference is really meant to bring us all together to be able to be on the same level where we should be. I would like to start with biogas. Biogas, over the years, did not have much government attention. But I would like it to be very clear and people to be aware that for the past 3 years, Treasury has been releasing funds for biogas and solar through RIA. And these are specific funds which we are saying we need to build capacity. The building of, the training of masons is to capacitate people at their own sites and areas so that they have the capacity to build the biogas digesters. And every year, Treasury has released those funds for RIA, which is our implementing agent, together with the ministry, and we have been building biogas digesters more as pilots, but working with people who have already adopted the technology. But I also want to highlight to you that there are women in Zimbabwe who are actually producing biogas, packaging it, and selling it in their communities as gas. You might not be aware, but it's happening in this country. There are people who are selling the generators which have been adapted to use biogas, especially diesel generators, and they are actually working. You find that at most exhibitions, at the trade fair, agricultural show, those are being exhibited. Farms have adopted the technology. They are using it for heating of pigs, chickens. We have the relevant heaters which are available in the market. For those who might not know, we can link you with some of the people who are actually using these technologies, including the stoves. So RIA has to continue and put more effort on publications, advertising, radios, so that people are aware of what's going on. But we will also want to bring some of the entrepreneurs who are actually doing gas in this country, and they are even building gas digesters for those people who want digesters. So it's important that we get this information asymmetry. So when it comes to wind, There are actually projects which have installed wind masts. I think we have 2 or 3 masts. There's one in Matebele and South, I think. Another one in, where is it? In Torashanga. We did the wind test at 80 meters up height in Mondoro. We have the statistics, we have the figures, we know how much needs to be produced, and we are aware of some investors who are working closely with some of the potential off-takers to do wind. We are at a very advanced stage for that. But the critical issue about wind is that the developers need to actually measure. So what is happening now is we have measurements which are ongoing. They did initially the desktop studies, and they are now doing proper measurements. And it needs at least 2 years data. And we are getting good wind speeds. And we believe that we can even do more and even adopt some of these vertical axis turbines, which we think should be done. And I agree with you. We need to go back to our original issues which we had, where we used to use windmills for water pumping. It's something which we have not been able, and we need the universities to look at the old designs and see how best they can improve on them. And there are already lots of these new designs which are there, which we need to adopt. But as government, we are pushing more local production. So let's do through our innovation hubs the local production. Let's design, let's look at what is there in the market and make it affordable. Let's use our own resources to do so. So in the next year or 2, we will be launching some wind projects. But there's a lot of work in terms of project development which is ongoing. So it's important that we do so. Last but not least is that we have RIA, we have Zend. Both companies are working on finding ways on how we can bring in assembly of PV cells. We take PV as a mature technology. Its uptake has been quite good in the country. We have to ride on that and make sure that we maximize on it as well, whilst we are introducing other technologies. And we believe that local assembly with potential to put in local content will then allow us to also create jobs instead of always talking about import exemptions, VAT exemptions, but we are exporting jobs. We need those jobs to be done internally and locally, and we need our innovation centers, our universities, to work with some of our government institutions which have already put in, I know they've put in a project plan, and they are looking for financiers and partners. So for you, my friend, we need people who don't just come to sell to us. We want that technology transfer. We want assembly plants to be established within the continent so that we can also get part of the value addition and beneficiation being done so that our children can have jobs. So I just thought I'll just add on and put in this rider to say, let's continue to meet because we need to share information. There's a lot of things going on so that we can all be part of the solution and the process to ensure that we do it right, we put more, and together we make a difference. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you. Thank you very much, madam, for that submission. I was just looking at the stage, and I think I was almost saying, let's just put another chair in the front there. And there's a lot of wealth of information that you have shared. I've just realized something while I was saying that some people are not speaking. I'm at the back here, and I'm standing right behind Engineer Midzi, and he's really taking notes. So I understand why he has not made a comment today, but I'll give him some time to do so.
Wilson, apologies, just before the engineer starts speaking. We have a Prado AGC 1511 and Land Cruiser AEO 8525, who are parked where the presidential motorcade is supposed to park. So if we have anyone with those two cars, please may you make your way outside and find somewhere else to park. Thank you.
Thank you. My question is directed to Engineer Amos Kapenzi. You mentioned you're coming up with a 50 megawatt PV plant. My question is your plant coming through with any grid support activities which ensure grid stability, voltage stability, and improve power transfer capabilities? For example, are you coming in through with any reactive power support, considering that the 50 megawatt plant is quite at a high level of penetration? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I'll just ask my brother to just introduce himself so that everyone's acquainted with you. While you're standing.
My name is Engineer Vincent Sande from the Rural Electrification Agency, Matebelele North. Thank you.
Thank you. That's for the optics. So if we do have a question, let's stand up and at least our cameras can pick you up.
Thank you. My comment is on the heels of a Permanent Secretary's presentation, specifically on wind. She has mentioned the issue of windmills for water pumping. You know, I remember when I was primary school going age, there were lots of windmills that were pumping water. So that's a technology that is already existing. And with the farming being in the forefront of our economic drive and efforts, that should be a project that is really worthwhile taking, especially for our rural communities and our new farmers. In addition to that, there's the issue of research and development. In all the presentations that have been made in this conference, as well as I recall last year conference as well, research and development was implied, but I would think that it would really help if it becomes part of the agenda for this renewable energy conference, so that it can be actively taken by agencies that are in the implementation program. For example, I remember one of the purposes, one of the objectives that RIA was meant to achieve was to be a center of excellence. In other words, not only to develop a capacity for grid, develop capacity to give rural areas electricity and so forth, but also to implement and learn from the implementation process to deliver better projects, to also deliver information to the industry. So that the research and development I'm talking about is not of an academic nature, but it is the research and development that is based on practical work, practical projects that is being done by those various agencies. They could, of course, such agents work closely with universities so that the universities could enrich those agencies with the academic side, theoretical side, but those agents that are involved in implementing could then be doing experiments, if I may use that word, pilot projects with an emphasis of researching so that the implementation, the technologies can be used better.
Thank you very much, Engineer. And I will now allow our panelists to respond. Then I'll come back for a second round of questions. I see your hands. So I'll allow our panelists to respond to the submissions, and then we'll take another round.
Thank you very much, Engineer, for asking about power system stability on the integration of 50 megawatt solar PV power plant in Shangani, which will be feeding at Shangani 132 kV. So the studies which we did internally as VE Energy, before we submit to ZTTDC System Development Department for grid impact study, we will also carry our internal study, which proved that at the 33 kV bus bar, the voltage from 33 to rise up to 35, and also as per the grid code and as per the Electricity Act, plus or minus 5% from 1 per unit is acceptable. So when you send the details to ZTTDC for grid impact study, it was also within our system study. So the grid impact study is out, and also the results are very good. We'll be able to integrate the 50 megawatts power station without the inclusion of the compensating equipment. Thank you for your question, and it was also in addition to my presentation.
Thank you very much. Coming back to R&D, as observed by Engineer Midzi, I would like to let the House know that is RIA, we are in partnerships with research institutions to research into the adaptation of these technologies that you are talking about. For instance, with Bindura University of Science and Education, we are looking at the production of power at farm level for use from biogas. In other words, biogas-fired generators. Then coming back to the issue of appropriate energy form for the given geographical space, we are saying in the rural areas, above 80% of the rural population is using traditional forms of energy. So our work is cut out there in terms of choice. There's really not much debate about what technology to adopt if 80% of the population has no access to modern forms of energy. And then in the past, we would grab the grid as the next or as the appropriate solution to that problem. So we have moved away from that and have said what other alternatives are suitable at cost dimension and also at sustainability level. And we find that technologies like biogas are now suitable for rural areas. With a cattle herd of 6 or even less, you can have a biogas that will supply you with enough energy for your household use. So the rural space, there's still a large opportunity to apply all forms of energy, but we go by cost level as we select these technologies. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. I agree with the statements of the Honorable Permanent Secretary about technology transfer. True, we need to revolutionize that industrial aspect whereby we need to do the manufacturing inside Africa, because ideally most of these materials, raw materials for the technologies that we buy from overseas, most of the raw materials come from Africa. So it's really be a good discussion on how we can also create policies to invite these investors to also set up industrialization or to do the manufacturing of, say, the lithium batteries inside Zimbabwe rather than us shipping batteries from outside the country. So it's really a conversation that I really support and see how we can really do that technology transfer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You just answered the last question, but I'll repeat it anyhow. Somebody just gave me a piece of paper. We at RIA have the dream of local assembly. Could Jinko, could we be a bulk supplier of PV cells in Zimbabwe? I think you have just spoken a bit about that. Jinko, bring your technology and then we can supply the world from Zimbabwe. This is probably what I'm getting from Ria. And thank you very much, Engineer Medzi. I'm one person who's been asking this question. I had an opportunity to grow up in a farm. And, well, it was one of these commercial farms. That's where my grandfather was. And most of the time, we would go to the water holes, and all the water holes had a wind pump. And my question keeps saying, there is no extra cost on this thing except for maintenance, maybe. Why are we reinventing the wheel? I think appropriate technology is now very important. We have wind, and I think we need to energize this subject of wind pumps in the rural areas. And thank you very much for your submission on biogas. If 80% do not have alternative energy, so it means it creates an opportunity. And I'm sure our financiers will also look at it from that point of view. What is the opportunity with the 80%? I'm going to ask the managing director of ZEST to just share one or two things. I think he wants to make a comment on this, just so.
Okay, thank you very much, the program coordinator. My name is Dr. Godfrey Mgaviri. I'm the managing director of ZES Enterprises. I want to appreciate the presentations that have certainly been made during this conference, and in particular, I want to make reference to statements that have been made by PS with respect to bringing in these technologies so that they can be manufactured in the country. As ZES Enterprises, you would appreciate that we are currently going through various appropriate corporate governance processes to ensure that we, through various provisions that we have, even through the ZIDA Act for triple Ps, so that we can start manufacturing solar-related equipment. I want to propose that, is it not possible then that we can come up with a resolution during this conference that there must be also be deliberate policy changes to ensure that it becomes easier for Zimbabwean companies which are appropriate. We have got capacity so that they can set up the relevant infrastructure development of these technologies. Ideally, I think all the technologies that we have discussed during this conference, I've noted that we are going to certainly import them or procure them beyond our borders. And I think in line with our Vision 2030, the aspect of import substitution, industrialization, I think it is critical. So I propose that the conference must also come up with a resolution which deliberately seeks to align policy so that the various technologies manufacturing can be done in Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone to second the proposal?
Thank you for that. I think what is critical is what is it in terms of policy. You remember the questions I was asking yesterday, which need to be done to facilitate them. What is it which is stopping them from doing it now? Because that mandate has been given to them. So we really need movement, and I agree with the resolution, it has to be there. But we want to give them a target that by the time we meet here next year, they will have set up something. Because it's important that there is a driver for those issues. Not to say we want policies to, what policy?
Okay. I'll leave this one a bit hanging in the sense that we are carrying on the discussion. Dr. Zuku, just something I wanted to note. I'll ask him to stand. In terms of our proposals that we are making, he's taking note. As he did last night, he gave us 7 points of what we are coming out with this. So I think before the day ends or before the sessions end, he's going to also share these proposals and see if we can adopt some of the proposals that we are picking up from this discussion. Thank you very much. I'll allow for 2 more questions in this round and then go back to our panel, and then from our panel, we'll end this session.
Thank you. My name is Engineer Edmond Chinyaza. My question is to Ria. It looks like biogas, we are focusing more on a micro level. Why not on a macro level? Zimbabwe has got a potential for methane gas in the mining sense, as well as use of waste within our cities, as well as our farming areas. Why not consider a position where we have a 50 megawatt biogas plant in every province? That brings about 500 megawatts of electricity to the country. In terms of sustainability, we then have a good energy mix with a long value chain, both in waste management, reforestation, as well as adoption of multiple uses associated with methane gas in our everyday lives, be it at household level, industrial level, as much as, literally in everything that we are doing. I think this will also enhance the idea of hybrid electric power generation systems. I'm glad also, I would like to put a comment on the 50 megawatt as well that is being proposed. Why not make it hybrid with the hydroelectric plant that we have in Kariba? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any other question? Okay, allow. Okay, I'll allow these 2 questions because there's a lady here. So I'll allow the gentleman and then the lady will finish off.
Thank you. My name is Alphonse Mzata, representing Blawayo Polytechnic. My area is training, and looking at what Engineer Chingosho highlighted, that you don't give someone what they don't need. Looking at the training that RIA has been doing, that Zera has been doing to train masons and installers of PV. Why don't we come up with a program for tertiary institutions to train a whole individual in renewable energy, someone who will be able to construct a biodigester, someone who will be able to install PV, someone who will be able to install a solar thermal system. Why should we train someone in those areas? Someone is trained as a mason, no demand for biodigesters. What are they doing? So they would rather be in a position to encourage the use of alternative technologies rather than a biodigester. Someone where there's a lot of firewood, for example, won't need the biodigester, but they need lighting, they need to run their radios and so on. So if we have someone that is trained at that level, at household level perhaps, that will encourage the uptake of the technologies. I also note that in renewable energy, we only have a program at master's level. It is my wish that we train someone from national certificate level, they rise up to national diploma, HND, first degree, and then their masters. So we have someone that can design the system at master's level and honors level. Then the lower parts, there will be the practitioners in installing. I thank you.
Okay, I will take questions directed to.
Good morning, my name is Barbara Shakuria. I'm from a renewable energy company in Dubai. So we're one of the fastest growing renewable energy companies in Africa. We have 4 gigawatts either in operation, under construction, or under development. We're doing 500 megawatt wind that is under construction in Egypt, and 500 megawatt solar as well. And we're across the continent now looking into Zimbabwe. In Southern Africa, we were awarded 120 megawatt in South Africa in December. And as I mentioned, we're now looking at Zimbabwe. I'm interested to hear about the 50 megawatt solar project that was mentioned, I think in Shangani. I would be interested to hear more about the guarantees that are being envisioned, the off-taker and tariff range, and also just about the financing mechanism. I think I'm going back to what was discussed yesterday, but would be interested to hear that. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. We'll take note of that. I'm sure one of them can address some of the questions that you've raised, but we're also going to have later on a Q&A, so we can then try and address all the questions that haven't been attended to. Thank you very much. Engineer, you may respond.
Okay, thank you. We've been requested to look into power production from biogas at the level of megawatts. The candidate locations for that are the municipalities. At the moment, there's one plant that we've heard about, but it's of a different technology. That is the Pomona one, which is from a pyrolysis perspective. You're talking about from an anaerobic perspective. So one of the key factors that you require for biogas production is abundant waste, abundant biodegradable waste. So to then find such amount of waste in the raw areas to then produce that level of power, you would need to grow energy crops for you to then have sufficient feedstock. This then brings into focus the conflict between food and power production. And particularly if you look at ethanol, that's one example of where the conflict plays out. So in order to produce power at that level, we need fields at commercial level to produce the maize, for instance, which then will be the feedstock into the digesters for that level of power. So given that conflict, why don't we focus on at municipality level and have that running? But however, unfortunately, the municipalities are outside our mandate as it were. But from an R&D perspective, we can still push for that to happen. But otherwise, we should be engaging the municipalities for that. Then training. Why are we training and not the training institutions? We've looked at that and also tried to have our ministry speaking to the appropriate ministry so that biogas technology is carried on the curricula from the colleges. I think that's works in progress. The best we could do was to engage the vocational training centers at each district as one, so that we start from there. There was a vacuum to begin with, and we've moved in to fill that vacuum, and it is expected that progressively we move through the echelons until we get to the top level. So again, that is works in progress. And as for biogas technology being carried at bachelor's level, I think CAT, Chinhoyi University of Technology, their bachelor's, I think, it's on that level. So it's catered for as it were. But otherwise, all suggestions have been taken on board. And we will act on them up to our level and engage those that have higher powers than us to move it to the next step. Thank you.
Engineer Kapenza.
Okay, thank you very much, Engineer. On the further question on the 50 megawatt PV power project, it's quite interesting. Because of time, I didn't manage to elaborate more. But on the 50 megawatt solar PV power plant, we'll be having a green hydrogen plant besides the solar field, whereby we'll be producing green hydrogen and also green ammonia. That is the further clarification to that. To my sister, who asked about the warranties, guarantees, it varies with each equipment manufacturer. Like for the transformers, we'll be having warranty period. For the solar panels, for the transmission line we'll be having. So it varies with the manufacturers. Any other further question we can discuss during tea break? I'm not saying we're now rushing for tea, but I'm saying we can further discuss.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Engineer?
Thank you. I will respond on questions to do with training and capacity building. I'm hoping that we are aware that University of Zimbabwe started offering a master's in renewable energy from 1996. So in Zimbabwe, we're so blessed to host the Solar Energy Conference. Okay. And as such, you'd find that University of Zimbabwe actually seeded most of the other renewable energy programs that you see within the region. We have experts who have been seconded to universities within the region to develop capacity so far as renewable energy technologies and training are concerned. If I'm to...
I almost just said, I think we need to clap hands for ourselves. 90, yeah. I think it's a well-deserved...
Yes. Up to today, we have produced more than 500 graduates. If I'm to pick one of these means and throw it into the audience right now, most likely I'll either hit our former student or I'll hit someone sitting to our former student. So in terms of capacity development, we are playing our role. And in terms of how best we can then liaise and link for the betterment of technologies in country, I will talk about what is now termed research, development, and deployment. We are now linking research with education 5.0, where we need now to produce goods and services. So traditionally what we have been doing was to produce students after successfully producing their dissertations, which usually are accompanied by prototypes. But now with the incubation of incubation hubs and innovation hubs, you find that you are now saying, let's take these projects, let's not just pack them like in institutional repositories. May we now send the best of our projects for full commercialization. So right now, my dean is actually present. He can testify that we have now startup companies at our research institutions, especially at UZ. We have startup companies in renewable energy who are now producing goods and services within the sector. I may as well announce that within capacity building, we also offer short training courses. So if there is any entity that feels that there is some need of training in either of the renewable energy technologies, we have experts within solar, within wind, within biomass, biogas, bioenergy, who can be seconded to train. We also are very willing in terms of community service, where we do community-based research. The idea being that most of the technologies that we are adopting here, some of them, they need to be locally contextualized. So if there is someone who wants to implement the renewable energy projects, there is nothing wrong with taking one unit. You work with the research institution, maybe not use it. Maybe it's Buse, maybe it's CAT, maybe it's Lupane State University, so that they do proof of concept. I will make a highlight of a map that was shared by my brother, Engineer Kapenzi, showing a solar map. If you go back to that slide, you'll see that it is written World Bank. But the truth of the matter is that map was developed by one of our local experts, whom probably I will not mention now, but is actually resident, is a current lecturer at the University of Zimbabwe. We have these maps, but what is lacking maybe is how probably we can avail them and for ease of access and also for cloud gathering, I would say. If you look at that map, you see that it's a heat map showing where the concentration of radiation is. And by the main look of that map, you will say it's Victoria Falls, right? But if you have access to the follow-up map, you will realize that the best place for photovoltaic yields is not Victoria Falls, it's Gweru. The reason being Victoria Falls is too hot. When panels get hot, they start to produce less. So we are saying as research institutions, before we take up these technologies that are coming, can we also work with research institutions and contextualize and do proof of concept through our research institutions so that we are not only researching, but we are also developing and deploying. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For me, that was a free lecture. When we meet outside, I'll pay you for that. Thank you very much. We're just about to round up this section. I'll ask Wangi to just say one or two words, and Engineer Sia Kachena will just make a comment, and then we close off this end.
on my crossing remarks, it's also about the training. The OEM and also the private sector has also a responsibility to support the industry in terms of the training. So this can only be done through collaborations with institutions. Yes, we have the technology, but how do we transfer also that technology to also the graduate trainees or the other researchers? There have to be the linkages, and sure, good we as a company are really open in terms of linkages, and in this case, maybe even research, PhD research linkages, and to see how we can support technology transfer. On training and certifications, we also try to also, as we also appreciate that in as much as solar is a mature technology, there's always that aspect of continuous innovation, continuous research and development. So what we do is that we also have our own solar academy that partners with tertiary institutions to ensure that we are also transferring our innovations also to the installers and also to other research institutions for knowledge sharing. So thank you.
I would just like to comment about training of solar PV and solar thermal and biogas in tertiary institutions. Speaking from the Minister of Higher Education, I'm a member of the National Manpower Advisory Council. I can confirm that these trades, these green skill trades, are in the process of being designated. So the curricula have been done, and they will soon be offered as trade skills in tertiary colleges. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll allow Engineer Kapenza to have his last comment, and I see the Dr. Zuku has a comment from that end. Thereafter, we will end this session.
Okay, thank you very much. Because of the unit of purpose in Zimbabwe, I would like to introduce, we'll be coming for formal introduction to the ministry. Dr. Magombe will be coming to your office. We wanted to come to your office before this conference, and also to Zesa Zera. Because of unit of purpose, we formed in an association which is called Association of Energy Engineers, Zimbabwe chapter, whereby all the members, all the players in the energy sector will be registering as members. So for this year, the registration will be free, but going forward, we'll be coming up with a registration fee. So the board chair or the president for the association is Dr. Fortunate Farai. She's not around. And also the vice president is Engineer Kapenzi. Also we've got other members from ZERA, ZPC who are part of the board. So may we please support this board. So in the coming weeks, we'll be coming to the Ministry of Energy, to ZESA, to ZERA for formal introductions.
Thank you for that announcement, and I'm sure it's well taken from this end and the organizations mentioned. I'll allow just for a few minutes while we close off this section.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I wish to speak and sort of give guidelines on government warranties and government guarantees for IPP projects in response to a question from a lady whom I believe is from, is it Amir? Yes, thank you for coming and visiting us from Egypt. You from UAE? Yes, yes. Yeah. The government has actually completed the development of a GIA, that is a Government Implementation Agreement document, and also a standard PPA document, as well as crafted a letter which we call the letter of undertaking by the RBZ. However, these documents are given to eligible IPPs. And eligible IPPs are those who have been licensed by the regulator, They have all the documentation, including proof of land availability. They should also have done their ASIA studies, as well as feasibility studies for the projects. Other additional documents that are required are indicative term sheets and indicative contracts for the EPC contractors. For those projects that have most of these requirements, they can submit their request to be considered to the Ministry of Energy and Power Development, addressed to the Permanent Secretary, and we will take it up with the Ministry of Finance. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Gentlemen, thank you very much for sharing your time. I will just allow you one statement, and then there's a mic on that. Okay.
So in closing, I wish that we don't become a man who locks their car using a remote, but still checks whether it is locked manually. That means that person doesn't trust the car, doesn't trust the siren, doesn't trust the insurance, it doesn't even trust the local environment. I put it to you, let's trust our local engineers, let's trust our local training, and together we'll go for renewable energy for us. Thank you.
Thank you. A round of applause for that. Thank you, gentlemen. You may take your seats. Feel free to have a bilateral with our colleagues, and we'll take up the next stage. Unique.
Thank you very much, Wilson, and thank you to all our panelists. Renewable energy technologies, of course, are developing progressively in Zimbabwe. And I think the great thing is we're future-proofing the next generation by making sure that, you know, this knowledge is also within our tertiary institutions. As we said, our theme for this year is managing the future. Clean energy is definitely possible. I love the statement that our lecturer made just before he left the stage. Let us trust the system so that we're able to have clean energy in the future and, of course, now. At this moment in time, I'd like to call upon our representative of the Angolan delegation, Mr. Brito, to come up. Very much.
That's good, thanks. Thank you very much. Good morning to all of you. I realize that the PS is not with us, but just in short, all protocol observed. We want to thank you, the organizers, for inviting us to this very excited conference. We are proud of that. We are here representing Angola. We are with our consular, which is Mr. Felipe Ferreira from the Angolan Embassy, heading our delegation. Our delegation, we have representatives from the generation side and from the transmission side. At generation, we have our CEO, the Chief Executive Officer of Prodel, Mr. Joaquim Ventura. We also have Mr. Gerson Moreira, which is the Director of Renewable and advisor to our CEO, Mr. Gilberto. And we have Mr. Ramos Tony, which is from the transmission, the R&T. I do not have any presentation. The organizers asked us before we enter just to give some briefs on the Angola power systems and the target. One of the country's target is to come up by 2027 with 72% of renewable in terms of hydro and solar. And we are busy
working on that. I'm just very short. I'll pass through very quick through the Angolan system from 2015 when we start actually the load shedding, power cuts. We know what does it mean, because before 2015 we had a lot. Our system in 2015 we had 2,300 megawatts, and 39% were from thermal sources, mainly generators and gas turbines. We had 61% of thermal, only 39% of hydro. And we start a very intensive program of restructuring, upgrading our facilities. We start uplifting the dam of one of our hydro, Kambambi power station. We had the total capacity was 180 megawatts, but we only had 9 megawatts operating. We uplift the dam so that we could have more power, and we rehabilitate. We reach up to 260 megawatts. After that, we started the construction on to upgrading this power hydropower station to 960 megawatts. Some years after, we experienced a big drought, so that we came up with the idea in terms of mix our generation. And we came up with a 750 megawatts, a combined cycle power station with gas. Actually, they are dual. We can use gas or diesel, but we mainly run the power station on gas. After that, we came up with downstream. We have a 500 megawatt hydropower station. At upstream, downstream, we construct a Lauka 2,070 megawatts hydropower. All of these installations are running on stream. We also upgraded a few hydro from 1958. One of them had 8.4 megawatts. We upgrade up to 37. Half of them, the 70 megawatts, are already on stream, on the grid. We also manage, currently upgrading and renovating, modernizing hydropower in south, in the Kunene River, of 40 megawatts. And from there, at 2015, we had the national power grid, the interconnection system, only 5 provinces connected. Now we have almost 10 provinces of 18 connected. And one of the main challenges now is our brother from the Southern African power pool, Alison Chikova, yesterday told us that Angola is not yet interconnected to the power pool. We are busy working to take a line, 400 megawatts from a Wambo substation up to a point where we are going to connect with ANA project. A line comes from Namibia, and so that we can share the megawatts that we have available and not in use. Quite now, we are busy constructing a hydropower of 2,172 megawatts. On solar programs, we have quite an aggressive and incentive program. We will pass, we have a short video here, we'll pass. We are now implementing a program of 370 megawatt solar. 2 of power schemes, they are already on grid. We'll pass one 188 megawatt, and the other one 96 megawatt. They were commissioned in this June, July, if I'm not mistaken. And we've got
these two, but we've got other 5.1 solar power schemes to come, and those are mainly for those isolated areas. And some of them, they are hybrid. They've got solar, they've got diesel, and or batteries. The country is also very busy looking at electricity access. As per today, we have 43% access of electricity to our population. And the main target is to come up by 2027 with 60% in terms of access. And for that, we are now working, and our company, the Prodel, our CEO, is coordinating the program. Always, it is an integrated package which has solar components on that. We also have water for water pumping facilities. We have some micro grids. The idea is to take power to the rural area, but to reach the houses of our citizens. Under these programs, now we are busy working for 2 provinces. One of the East Province, where almost 220 megawatts will be installed on 60 localities. And with another one, which for the South region, also to benefit almost with the 290 megawatts also in different smaller schemes, pilot projects that we replicate. We are going to replicate another 290 megawatts. On large-scale projects, we are also busy now. We are all these projects with funding secured. 400 megawatts, it's going to be solar power schemes, most closer to our hydro facilities in Lauka, the one I referred to, 2,070 megawatts. And also closer to Luanda region, we are going to build 104 megawatts solar projects. We've got Kebinda, it's up north, closer to DRC. It's an isolated area. Actually, we've got projects there, and yesterday Alison Chikova referred to, where we also busy working with the SAPP and other brothers from DRC to see whether we can get a line from Soyo, where we have our 50 megawatt hydropower gas, the combined cycle, and up to Chewinga. But just now we are working on constructing a 90 megawatt solar project with a 25 megawatt hour batteries system. It's in short, what are the challenges now? We are integrating a lot of renewables in our grid. We are passing through challenge, we are learning. If you start, Mr. Brito, what, maybe some of the questions I will not able to respond. But we know, in terms of power system stability, voltage, frequency on angle, all these issues to be referred, those frequency control, we are happy that we have much spinning reserve. In our system now, if I'm going to my computer, I will realize that we may have 3 or 4 units for 334 megawatts down. They are not working because no load. So we do have spinning reserve a lot, and we also managed to, in terms of power lines, to have any -1 criteria so that we do not have such much. Just to conclude, in one, ask me how we do find these projects. The Angolan government itself has a program which occurs, National Investment Program. All of ministries every year, before the national budget be structured, have to present what are the main issues to consider under the national budget, and some projects are funded through this. The other way is through external funds with government guarantees. Some of these projects are being funded by Germans, by Sweden, even Development Bank of Southern Africa. Now, the South project, which is it's going to be funded by US, the American government. And we as a company, for those small-scale projects, we go through the commercial banks and what we do. We have a short video so that we can show you what look like a power plant scheme for 180 megawatts and 90 megawatts. Thank you very much.
A round of applause. That was Mr. Brito from the Angolan delegation. What's interesting is that on our sustainable development goals, goal number 7 says affordable and clean energy for all. And I'm so glad that Angola is already on that path to make sure that they're bridging the inequalities within different communities. And I guess it really shows that this is how we can manage the future in terms of creating sustainable energy. I guess this is also an open invitation, Mr. Brito, for us to possibly host the Renewable Energy Conference in Angola. Hopefully we'll be coming there soon. That'll be exciting. At this moment in time, our valued delegates, I would like you to make your way out for tea. We will only spend about 10 minutes and come back inside, and then we can finish our last panel as we prepare for the afternoon. Thank you very much.